The Ribhu Gita is one of the most profound and direct scriptures on non-duality ever composed. It appears as a section of the Shivarahasyam, an ancient Sanskrit text, and takes the form of a sacred dialogue between the sage Ribhu and his disciple Nidagha. Through simple yet penetrating verses, Ribhu reveals the essence of Advaita Vedanta, the realization that all that exists is the one self, pure consciousness without a second. Free from philosophical complexity, the Ribhu Gita speaks directly to the heart of the seeker. Its verses dissolve the illusion of separateness, guiding the mind back to its source, the silent awareness that is our true nature. Ramana Maharshi held the Ribhu Gita in the highest regard. He said that constant reading or recitation of it leads directly to self-realization. It was one of the few texts he personally recommended to devotees. The original Sanskrit consists of over 2,000 verses, later condensed into the popular Tamil version, around 1,200 verses, that Ramana himself read daily. The Ribhu Gita belongs to the Upanishadic tradition. Its message echoes the Mandukya Upanishad and Ashtavakra Gita, proclaiming the same truth. All this is Brahman. I am that. The name Ribhu means the wise, or the skillful one, and symbolizes the pure intellect that has merged into knowledge of the self. The book's rhythmical and repetitive structure is intentional. Each verse reinforces the insight that nothing exists apart from consciousness, helping dissolve the mind's dualistic tendencies through meditative reading. An aspirant's preparatory. That which is known as Brahman, or the Self, is the timeless truth. It alone is for all eternity, the unalloyed being, and non-duality is its nature. Advaita Vedanta, or the teaching of non-duality, consists of the knowledge of this immutable truth. The teaching reveals that the Self alone is real without a second. It is a revelation of reality itself. The non-dual truth is presented utterly unobscured by sage Ribhu in this rare, sacred work. The aspirant of self-knowledge must be endowed with non-attachment to all that is transitional, mutable, fleeting phenomenal appearance, dependent on senses, dependent on mind, contained in the states of mind, dependent on the individual. The aspirant should also be endowed with the power of discrimination, the ability to embrace the inquiry into the real nature of the self, the ability to disidentify from body, senses, prana, mind, and ego, or I notion, the ability to be immersed in one-pointed meditation on the self. The aspirant should discriminate between real and unreal so that he realizes that the real ever is and the unreal never came to be. Unreal, transitory, real, eternal. Unreal, changeful, real, unchanging. Unreal, objective, real, non-objective. Unreal, composed of parts, real, indivisible, or partless. Unreal, sporadic, real, continuous. Unreal, dependent, real, non-dependent. The aspirant must approach this scripture with an intense desire for liberation, taking it as a great blessing that such a scripture from which all words and thoughts turn back should exist. As a profound meditation, with the belief that this is no mere collection of words or thoughts, but the revelation of the eternal self. The repetition in Ribhu's instruction is intentional, and for the purpose of inculcating a profound meditative approach and the direct experience of self-knowledge described therein. For those who experience this realization, the truth is ever fresh and of perpetual fascination. The seemingly paradoxical statement as of the various objects being unreal, and adding at the end that they are all Brahman and thus real, was replied to by Ramana Maharshi as, "When you see them as several, they are unreal, but when we see them as Brahman, their substratum, they are real." The Maharshi further says that there is no non-self. In fact, the non-self also exists in the self. It is the self which speaks of the non-self because it has forgotten itself. Having lost hold of itself, it conceives something as non-self, which after all is nothing but itself. Truth transcends all thought, speech, printed word, ideas, and even silence. It is inconceivable, and yet it alone is. Those who seek to realize it find it abiding within themselves as the self free of all objectivity and duality. Realization of the self is the realization of the absolute reality, for they are one and the same, and not in any way apart. This is the matter of self-knowledge, and for those who realize the importance of it, the Ribhu Gita was intended as a sign pointing towards the truth of the self. The total and inseparable unity of the self, Atman, the Absolute, Brahman, and their nature as consciousness has to be comprehended. The central practice is that of inquiry into the nature of the Absolute, and oneself of which self-inquiry is given more emphasis. Because the self cannot be objectivized, that is, perceived or conceived, in describing it, negation is a primary means of both meditation and revelation. Ignorance consists of misidentification of the self with what is not the self, that is, the illusory objectivized existence, body, mind. Ignorance alone is one's bondage and cause of suffering. By negation as a process of self-inquiry, this ignorance is destroyed. This does not lead to a new objective definition, but rather effacing everything and places oneself into the self, his true nature. The aspirant can apply the negations used by Ribhu as a means to be read and reflected upon, removing the superimposition of the negated from the reality of the self. The negations of Ribhu are thorough in attributing any identity or reality to anything but the self. Thus, in the process, one realizes the nature of the self as being formless, forever undivided, unconditioned, and non-dual. Realizing the self or Brahman, one sees that there is nothing other than it, with it, evolving from it, produced by it, or even returning to it. With this knowledge, one sees that at all times, all is Brahman, or the self only, and nothing but that. Consequently, Ribhu has also propounded an all-inclusive approach in the revelation of reality. The text of the Ribhu Gita is intended for spiritually minded people, and it assumes that one understands that lasting happiness, peace, or freedom cannot come from external objects. One knows that the expression self indicates the impersonal absolute. One recognizes that self-knowledge alone is this realization or liberation. One is familiar with the great value of self-inquiry. Self-inquiry does not fall into the four erroneous dualistic views of practice and realization. Production. The self is not produced or created by anything. Transformation. The self always is, and whatever we assume to be transformed ego is illusory or unreal. Purification. The self is ever pure, so further purification is not required. Acquisition. The self is not something apart from oneself to be acquired. The text of Ribhu Gita can be used as means for inquiry into the question, who am I? For gaining a firm conviction regarding the self, as a course for tracing the sense identity inward to the self, to gain complete detachment, which is essential to realize the perfect fullness of the self. Further, the text can also be used to rid oneself of all concepts as a line-by-line or verse-by-verse meditation as a meditation involving identification with being consciousness, to meditate upon and comprehend the utter unreality of all that is negated. Finally, always remember that in truth there is no creation and no destruction, no instructed and no instructor, no bondage and no liberation, no one bound, striving or liberated, no duality or unreality, and no destruction of unreality. Truth alone is, the self alone exists. Chapter 1. Ribhu-Nidagha Dialogue. History of the treatise. Definition of the self. One's own experience. History of the treatise. In the days of yore, the Supreme Shiva taught this extolled epic to the Supreme Mother. She taught this to her son Skanda, who taught this to Jaigishavya Skanda, who taught this to Jaigishavya. Vyasa, who obtained this with the grace of Shiva, taught this to the sage Suta. Sage Suta, now to a gathering of elite sages in the Naimisa forest, tells how Jaigishavya and other sages implored Skanda to narrate this epic. Skanda said, "Once upon a time the sage Ribhu, the thought son of Brahma, saw my father on Mount Kailasa. Sage Ribhu addressed him thus, 'Excellent and perfect Guru, out of your compassion be gracious enough to instruct me in the knowledge of pure non-duality.' Pleaded thus, Sankara gave Ribhu the knowledge offered in 4 parts of aphoristic formulae that explain clearly the entire meaning of Vedanta. Ribhu, having heard, reflected, and meditated upon this supreme knowledge, bowed to Sankara in gratitude and sung his praises. And then, at his bidding, wandering here and there, he reached, due to diverse circumstances, high earth, coming to the exalted holy center of Kedara. On seeing him there, other spotless sages, Nidagha being the main amongst them, lovingly prostrated before him, and prayed to be instructed in the divine knowledge imparted to him by Lord Shiva. Moved by their supplication, sage Ribhu was filled with joy, and said that there was no secret kept from them, as they were all learned ones, yet I shall expound to you this great knowledge. Definition of the self. Addressing Nidagha, Ribhu said, "The definition of the self is not available in all the triad of time, past, present, and future. There is nothing that can be talked of as the non-self, neither mind nor world. In the absence of mind, there is no thinking. In the absence of body, there is no aging. With the conviction of there being Brahman, only be of the certitude that there in no non-self. As there is no individuality, duality there is none. As there is no truth, untruth there is none. As there is no I, there is no you either. There being no action, doer, there is none. Appearances of all kinds are only Brahman. It is the undivided supreme, Brahman that is the self. One's own experience." Thus spoke the sage Ribhu. Joyously addressing him, Nidagha sincerely requested a description of his wonderful, personal, beatific experience. The sage answered him thus, "I am indeed Brahman of the nature of truth, knowledge, bliss, which transcends everything, which pervades everywhere. I am never the body or the senses or the thoughts or the mind. I am never the petty ego or its cause, ignorance. I am never the mortal, the child, the youth, or the aged. I am always the undivided supreme Brahman indeed." What further descriptions can I give in diverse ways? I am Brahman, Brahman is I, and I am all. Whoever hears this becomes Brahman himself. Sutta thus told all the sages this clear exposition by the all-knowing Skanda to Jaigishavya, the eager inquirer. It explained how, following the gracious teaching of the Supreme Shiva, the sage Ribhu, in his compassion, described to Nidagha his personal experience of the exalted state of non-dual, undivided awareness of the Self. Chapter 2. Description of Shiva's teaching to Kumara. It is the same teaching given by Shiva to Ribhu. You are of the nature of Brahman. Nidagha asked, "What is the requisite knowledge for attaining the knowledge of the Supreme Brahman? Please explain to me in detail the way Shiva expounded it." Sage Ribhu replied, "Negating all the illusory attributes like the individual jiva and the supreme para, by clear inquiry, and fearlessly realizing the undivided Supreme as I am Brahman. You, yourself, are the Supreme Brahman, which is a mass of Existence-Consciousness-Bliss. You, yourself, are Brahman, which, like the sky, with no form, the blemishless reality, which is complete, full, and undivided. You, yourself, are the Supreme God, which knows no sorrows of birth and death, nor conditionings such as birth. There is no doubt in this, hence realizing the knowledge that the Self is Brahman, you, the Self, shall become the undivided Supreme Brahman." Nidagha, in a rapture of unparalleled joy, praised the sage and implored him to instruct him further in the undivided knowledge of Brahman. Ribhu affectionately replied, "Truly, the world never exists. The world was never created. When inquired into fully, all things that seem different from Brahman, which is the substratum of all, will be seen to be only Brahman, the reality, and nothing else. There is no Maya, illusion, no effects of Maya, no delusive notion, no world which deludes, no fallacious ego, no mind, no activity of mind, no intellect, no body, no action, no doer, no effect, no seer, and nothing to be seen. What exists eternally, with nothing to be acquired or discarded, is only Brahman. There can be no statement that all does not exist, nor that all is illusory, nor that all is Brahman, nor that I am ever Brahman, nor that Brahman is I. There is nothing such as you and me. It is only the Supreme Brahman that exists, transcending all statements, undivided and immutable. All these foregoing statements of negation also do not exist. It is only the Supreme Brahman that exists as the pure space of natural consciousness. Thus, the sage Sutta gave the definition of Brahman as Skanda gave it to Jaigishavya, and how the sage Ribhu related this with love to Nidagha in the manner of exposition by the Supreme Shiva. Chapter 3. Description of the phenomenal world being existence-consciousness. All is illusory. All is only consciousness, the worship of the attributeless. Sage Ribhu, continuing further with what the Supreme Shiva told him, said, "The worlds, religious vows, various states, abodes, fear, supports, enjoyments, and the multitude of relationships are all illusory. Bondage, liberation, sorrow, meditation, thought, gods and demons, the secondary, the principal, the highest, and the separate are all illusory. There is no doubt of this. Who am I? What is that or this? I am He. These and other such sentences are unreal. Whatever happens in this world is all illusory. There is no doubt of this. All is illusory. The world is illusory. Likewise, the past, present, and future are illusory. Any particular attitude of mind is unreal, utterly unreal. All is illusory. There is no doubt of this. Hear further the highly secret and wonderful definition that was given to me by the Lord, Isvara, on the exalted Kailasa mountain. which I shall now give for the benefit of all. All that which appears as differentiated is ever of the nature of differenceless consciousness alone. The nature of that extolled consciousness, which alone is the nature of the indivisible supreme Brahman. The seer and the seen, the knowledge and the knowable, the fixed and the changing, the gross, subtle, and causal body, all are consciousness. Except for consciousness, there is no bondage, no liberation, no individual, jiva, no lord, iswara, no world, not an atom. Whatever is consciousness will never be destroyed. It is of the nature of the Supreme Brahman. A complete worship of the attributeless Supreme Shiva is now described by Ribhu, which has to be performed inwardly in the mind, manas puja, with no external objects involved. It mainly consists of deep meditation with the firm conviction that I am the Supreme Brahman. One who thus performs this pure worship even once, as told in Vedanta, will remove all past impressions, tendencies, ignorance, and sorrow. Chapter 4. Definition of one's self. Giving the definition of the one undivided essence and the undivided existence. All is one undivided essence. The self, the guru, whatever can be spoken of, light, body, mind, thought, knowledge, all are one undivided essence. The father, mother, husband, wife, those considered relatives, the unrelated, all are of the nature of the one undivided essence. Lineage, clans, person, personality, experience, the aphorisms, their meaning, scriptures, all are one undivided essence. I shall further dwell on the unchanging experience, the most secret, the great, and the wondrous. Listen with an attentive mind. I indeed am the undivided supreme space of consciousness, the supreme Brahman, without any divisive differences, the substance of absolute truth. I myself am of the nature that has no interactions, nowhere to go, and has nothing like the waking, dream, or deep sleep states. I am of the nature of the Supreme Brahman, beyond the reach of mind and words, which remains as the reality devoid of the sky and other elements, which abides as the One, devoid of anything, any time. I am the supreme consciousness that severs the knot of the mind. Those who, as explained, are benighted with baneful ignorance, bereft of the grace of Shiva, wearied with a variety of actions, weakened by material wants, will ever wander in the woeful state. Thus did Ribhu explain to Nidagha the meaning of the undivided supreme truth. Chapter 5. Determination of the phenomenal world being the void and the non-existence of all. All are like the horns of a hare. All are Brahman. Sage Ribhu begins this chapter by declaring all the mobile and immobile world being like the horns of a hare. All that is seen, heard of, all objects, even the seer, are like the horns of a hare. He continues with this declaration, covering almost everything, and finally says, anytime, anywhere, the duality that delineates the world, individuals, jivas, and the Supreme is totally false, like the horns of a hare. The perfectly full Supreme Brahman alone is the absolute truth, which remains imperishable, untainted, in all three periods of time. One who listens to and understands this extremely secret truth with no wavering becomes Brahman. Mind itself is sankalpa, concept, and vikalpa, doubt. Mind itself is intellect and thought. Mind itself is ego. Mind itself is all inner faculties. Mind itself is individual and bondage. Mind itself is the elements and expansive space. Mind itself is all the worlds, the greatest enemy. the great transmigration, birth, senility, and death. Mind itself is the great sorrow, the great blemish, time and all such. Mind itself is the gross, subtle, and causal body, the waking and dream stages. The mind, it is ever the illusion akin to the web of wizardry, like the son of a barren woman. The mind itself is never existent at all. For those who become the seer alone with nothing to see and who remain in a state devoid of mental misconception, there is no waking, dream, or deep sleep, no death or deliverance, and nothing else. What shall we say of the mind ensconced in the stillness of the solitude of the void? Thus did Ribhu describe the certitude of the absolute truth to Nidagha. Chapter 6. The chapter of the determination of I am Brahman. Speaking of the bath in the waters of Brahman and the mantra for Brahman, Nidagha asked Ribhu the nature of his daily purificatory bath, the proper mantra to be recited. He also asked, what is the libation, Tarpana, and the fire oblation, Homa, for it? Ribhu replied, the best bath of all is the refreshing one in the reservoir that is the supreme Brahman, the perfectly full, not different from the self. Brave son, no other bath in any other water is a bath. I bathe always in the differenceless expanse of knowledge, the sea of supreme Brahman. I am ever of the nature that is devoid of the body, the senses, the mind, the ego, and such. I am ever of the nature that is non-dual, that has not an atom of name and form. The certitude that I am the supreme Brahman is the sublime bath. Thus, I have told you the easy way of the purificatory bath. Hear now the mantra of the supreme Brahman, which is, I am Brahman. At all times, this is the best and essence of all mantras. The blemishless knowledge of the Supreme should be practiced by the daily, constant, assiduous repetition of the incomparable mantra, I am Brahman, for a long time. It would destroy all great sins and distress that dualism develops. The I am Brahman mantra alone would destroy all false differences and the strong ills of the mind or thought. It would destroy all conceivable sorrow, desires of the heart, swollen anger, and all concepts. The resounding I am Brahman mantra alone will bring continuous meditation, savikalpa, differentiated samadhi, nirvikalpa, difference-less samadhi, and would invoke immediate awareness. It is ever the I am Brahman that reveals the blemishless knowledge of the self. There is no mantra at all to surpass this rare mantra. Casting aside all mantras, the seekers of liberation should firmly, assiduously, and uninterruptedly practice the I am Brahman mantra ever. By such changeless practice, knowledge and liberation will be attained in a moment. Chapter 7. Description of the twin topics of Tarpana to Brahman and Homa to the self. Speaking of the Tarpana, libation of water, and Homa, oblation in fire. 4. Brahman or self. Nidagha, I shall now tell you the daily Tarpana, libation of water, and Homa, oblation in fire, as expounded by the magnanimous Supreme Shiva. These weighty words are rare, so listen with an attentive mind. As there is nothing to be witnessed, I am not of the nature of the witness. As there is nothing to be seen and none to see, I am of the nature of the undisturbed only one, Kevala. I have no special traits or activities. This certitude of being Brahman is itself the Tarpana. I am of the nature that is devoid of mutations like birth and such, devoid of vacillating action, devoid of body, senses, life, mind, intellect, thought, or ego. This certitude of being Brahman itself is the Tarpana. I am of the nature of the eternal void, the great complete silence, the one changeless self, the exalted fourth state, Turiya, transcending the fourth state, Turayatita, that has none of these. This certitude of being Brahman is itself the Tarpana. Listen now with an unwavering mind to the Homa, oblation in fire, to the supreme Brahman. There is no listening and study for me, no thinking and reflection for me. The I am Brahman certitude itself is the rare Homa. There is no differenceless meditation for me, no undifferentiated absorption in meditation for me, no knowledge of the void or non-dual liberation for me. I am the supreme Brahman without a beginning. Such certitude itself is the rare Homa. All Vedas are unreal, the scriptures are unreal, the meaning of Vedas is unreal. The world, moving and unmoving, composed of elements, is unreal. The I am the supreme Brahman certitude is itself the rare Homa. All manner of philosophies, all kinds of castes, all kinds of asramas, orders of life, all names, all forms are indeed unreal. I am the supreme Brahman devoid of all. Such certitude is itself the rare Homa. The I am Brahman certitude is the purificatory bath, the mantra, the Tarpana, and the Homa. It is all the prescribed duties. Hence, the seeker of liberation should daily, incessantly practice the I am Brahman certitude. Thus, the great sage Ribhu lovingly and elaborately explained to Nidagha, until all doubts in his mind had resolved, the knowledge expounded by the Supreme Shiva, who benignly bestows the boon of liberation and any kind of aim in life. Purushartha. Chapter 8. Topic of the liberation while alive. Definition of the Jivan Mukta, one liberated while alive. Ribhu said, I shall now explain the characteristics of a Jivan Mukta. The one who abides solely in the self, or Brahman, is called a Jivan Mukta. He who is definite of being consciousness only, who is of the nature of consciousness alone, and who does not remember anything else at all, is called a Jivan Mukta. There is not even a little of mine. I have no world, no time, no space. I have no objects. I have no being. There is no ablution or renunciation for me. Such a one is called a Jivan Mukta. One whose mind is like a motionless rock, who completely discards all other ideas, is rid of all false multiplicity, and exists without differences, is peaceful, is a Jivan Mukta. One who has the certitude of having no delusion, mind, intellect, wisdom, ego, life, and various senses, and has no enemies like anger, desire, defects, or effects of intellect. One who has the steadfast certitude that I am Brahman is a Jivan Mukta. There is no birth, existence, growth, development, decay, or death, and no means of perception for me. There is neither childhood, youth, nor old age, and no conditionings that can be experienced here for me. There is no non-duality or duality for me. I am the Supreme Brahman. One thus established is a Jivan Mukta. The attachmentless Jivan Mukta is one who has the undivided realization that he is of the nature of Supreme Brahman, which abides in itself as itself. He is established all by himself, as himself, in himself, and is enjoying the bliss of himself. Chapter 9. Description of the topic of liberation outside the body. Definition of the Videha Mukta, one liberated out of the body. Hear now, Nidagha, the rare exposition of the characteristics of a Videha Mukta, one who is liberated out of the body. He is a Videha Mukta who is devoid of all recollections, abiding in himself in utter silence. The one who does not think that he indeed is Brahman, or consciousness, or the One, leaving aside even the certitude, the certitude that I am Brahman and is full of bliss, is the Vidyahamukta, transcending the entire mobile or immobile world, without the trace of truth or non-truth, knowledge or ignorance, meditation or non-meditation, thoughts or thoughtlessness, established in himself as the Supreme Brahman, is the Vidyahamukta. The Vidyahamukta is the one who has become the indivisible Supreme Self. He is a formless, boundless being who has no interactions with the cycles of birth and death. Thus, I have told you the characteristics of a Vidyahamukta in the manner expounded to me by the gracious Supreme Shiva. He who listens attentively and understands unmistakably shall himself become the formless Supreme Brahman. Those who have not surrendered their minds to Shiva and do not realize that they themselves are Shiva can never attain the state of Vidyahamukta, which is to be the reality itself. This is the truth. Nidagha, Chapter 10. Description of the Self being all. All is of the nature of the Self. Hear this exposition about the greatness of the Self. The Self, which is of the nature that pervades all the world, transcends all the world, is of the nature of all and beyond all, the ever-peaceful Existence-Consciousness-Bliss. All objects are of the nature of the Self. All that is seen is of the nature of the Self. At all times, all things are of the nature of the Self. There is nothing apart from the Self that is the Brahman. Whatever is seen apart is also the Self. The Self is beyond duality and non-duality, transcends the fourth state, exists as the blemishless self-illumined, to be looked upon as our real, natural state. To realize the Self of undivided bliss, one should first consistently engage in Shravana, listening. One should daily engage in Manana, reflection. One should always have steadfast, profound, continuous meditation, Nididhyasa. And one should always practice the knowledge that I am Brahman. All bodies, beings, experience, objects, delusions, realization, yoga, and all objects of yoga are indeed of the nature of the Self. All longings, all activity, all understanding, all good fortune, all that is lost, all that remains, all that gets transformed, all that is sentient, is indeed of the nature of the Self. Apart from the all-pervasive, perfectly full Self, there is no world or individual, jiva or such. The Supreme Self is higher than the highest. There is no trace of doubt in this firm exposition. It is the truth. Whoever has steadfastly listened to and understood this exposition even once will become Brahman. Thus did the rare sage Ribhu discourse upon the greatness of the undivided Self to the great sage Nidagha. Chapter 11. Description of the topic of the bliss of the Self. All is Brahman, and I am that. Listen, blemishless Nidagha. There never is any such word as duality. Always all is of the nature of Brahman. All the things of the world and others, all appearances, all varieties of appearances, all thoughts, all ever is of the nature of Brahman. All holy shrines, good and bad acts, happiness and sorrow, praise and indignity, repetitious birth and death, success and failure, bondage and liberation, and all events are of the nature of Brahman. The beginning and the end, the bottom, top and middle, the past, present, and future, all are of the nature of Brahman. There is no doubt about this. This is the truth. The jiva, individual, and other such superimpositions are all Brahman, which is the substratum. I am that Brahman alone. With trouble-free awareness of this, you will become liberated at the feet of the pure Supreme Shiva. There is no doubt about what has been said. This is the truth. Indeed, I am only the Supreme Brahman, unfragmented, the Supreme Light, without dawn or day, without cause and effect, which is everywhere, without a second. Realize this ever, son, without any delusion. Even if one is not capable of realizing this exposition as explained yet, even by reading this daily with love, contemplating upon it, or reciting this to others, one can have his impurities removed and become oneself the differenceless Supreme Brahman. Chapter 12. Definition of the topic of Brahman indeed is all. All is Brahman alone. For the benefit of all, I shall explain to you the rare exposition of truth expounded earlier to me by the Supreme Lord. Listen with one-pointed attention and unerringly understand its meaning. The gross and wakefulness, the subtle and the dream, the causal and deep sleep, and the experiencer of all of these three states of the body are only Brahman. The Vyasti, discrete, which takes on forms, and Samasti, aggregate, is Brahman only. The unattached fourth state, Turiya, and the experiencer of it is Brahman only. This, that, and anything, man and woman, are only Brahman. That which is neither male nor female is only Brahman. The mountains and rivers, the shrines and holy waters, the gods residing therein, the services rendered to these gods, all are only Brahman. What is understood as here and beyond all kinds of conditionings are only Brahman. The primal ignorance, the actions arising therefrom, the knowledge that cuts asunder bondage, is also only Brahman. I am ever only Brahman. You are ever only Brahman. All others are only Brahman. All is only Brahman. If one utters, hears, or teaches to others this exposition, that all that appears as the world, individual or supreme, is only Brahman, he will thereby quickly attain the knowledge of the pure Supreme, get rid of the ego, and become Brahman, the perfectly full bliss. Chapter 13. Description of the topic of You indeed are consciousness. All is unreal. All is consciousness. I shall speak of that which is extremely difficult to find in the scriptures. Listen attentively. All is simply unreal. Whatever in the least is seen in this world, whatever in the least is spoken of in this world, whatever in the least is experienced in this world, wherever, all that is only unreal. The action of the mind, the action of the intellect, and likewise the action of delusion, and whatever little there is apart from the self, all that is only unreal. Everywhere is only consciousness. The Guru is pervaded by consciousness alone. Awareness is only consciousness. Good action is only consciousness. The silent self is only consciousness. Consciousness alone is the universe with form. The supreme state is of the nature of consciousness and the immutability of consciousness. Indeed, you are consciousness. Indeed, I am consciousness. There is not an atom apart from consciousness. All is consciousness. All beings who experience birth, aging, and death will, by turning to Shiva, who has no birth or such, and reflecting and contemplating upon him, overcome the great delusion. And so, being fearless, with the knots of their mind cut asunder by the undivided supreme knowledge without a second, they become the non-dual Shiva. Thus, the sage Ribhu expounded the rare meaning of the Supreme to Nidagha. Chapter 14. Topic of the summary of all the settled conclusions. Inquiring into the undivided nature. Listen, in this exposition, to the gist of the secret of all the settled conclusions. There is no duality or non-duality which are talked about. Only the peaceful Brahman is ever existent. Hence, you should start inquiring into this. I am ever of the nature of the Supreme Brahman, the Supreme Shiva, the Supreme Self, higher than the highest, pure, perfectly full, undivided. Inquire steadfastly into this every day. I transcend time, space, all objects. I ever transcend everything. I am of the nature that has not an atom of conceit or attachment. I am of the nature of the immaculate Supreme Brahman. Inquire steadfastly into this every day. I am ever of the nature of existence alone, consciousness alone, only the good, the middle path, the non-dual. I am of the nature of the self of all, without intellect and such, the abode that transcends the intellect. Inquire steadfastly into this every day. I am Brahman. I am Brahman. I indeed am all. Daily and continuously be immersed in this inquiry until this mode of I am Brahman becomes stabilized. Then cast this off too and become Brahman, established changelessly in the undivided blissful experience. Those who sincerely practice the knowledge that I am the Supreme Brahman, the eternal, partless, ancient mass of bliss, the reality, the utterly peaceful consciousness, will have the awareness of non-duality and thereby become the undivided Supreme. Hence, until all differentiation disappears, one should always remain in the beneficent bhava, conviction that all is Brahman, and I am indeed that Supreme Brahman. Until all uncertainty and confusion disappears totally, and unmindful of anything else, be in repose in the I am Brahma bliss. Thus, the great sage Ribhu explained to Nidagha the meditation of oneness. Chapter 15. Ribhu-Nidagha Dialogue. The means for the conquest of the mind. Listen, I shall tell you further about the Supreme that instantly bestows liberation. Whatever functions in whichever way, whatever thought in whichever way, are Brahman only. The injunctions of the Vedas, the great aphorisms, yoga, and knowledge, all are of the nature of Brahman. First, contemplate that all the seen is the seer, that is Brahman, and then proceed to even cast off that thought. Then, being lost in the silent meditation in the void, will confer unsurpassed bliss and rid oneself of all fear. Because of this certitude, turn your attention to abundance in meditation. Casting aside all and becoming the void is the renunciation of all. By all is meant only the mind. Casting off the mind is the renunciation of all. And it is the renunciation of mind that is the renunciation of thought. When thought is not there, there is not in the least the world and its beings. If it is there, they are there. Therefore, son, it is thought that is the individual, the jiva, and the supreme, para, and the world. One must conquer thought by any possible means. Now, hear this. There is never such a thing as thought at all. There is only the Supreme Brahman, which is all consciousness, established as eternal and perfectly full. For victory over thought, this permanent certitude is the unfailing means, son. By this, destruction of the mind will truly result. If that results, all will shine as consciousness. Conquest of thought alone is the great success, achievement, yoga, knowledge, purification, liberation, removal of sorrow, and the greatest happiness. By the certitude that I am the Supreme Brahman, which is the Self, which is nothing but consciousness only, achieve the conquest of thought. The Self alone is the guru of the Self. The Self alone is the disciple of the Self. The Self alone can know the Self. The Self alone exists as the Self. The Self alone can take away the Self. The Self alone is the undivided fullness. By attaining the certitude that I am the Self, son, achieve conquest of thought. Until there is the stability of the differenceless realization that Brahman is all and I am that Brahman, you should meditate on the identity that Brahman is all, I am Brahman. When there is the awareness of that identity, the changeless supreme knowledge that all is Brahman and that I am will become the natural sahaja state. Hence, by the conviction, bhava, that all is Brahman, and that Supreme Brahman is myself, and having a natural awareness by means of such conviction, bhava, you shall achieve conquest of thought. Thenceforth, there is nothing else left for you to do. Nidagha. Whatever I have told is certain. Why elaborate further? If you are always immersed, without the least exception, in the certitude that I am Brahman, you will achieve conquest of thought easily by that. There is no doubt about what I have said, and what I have declared is the truth. Chapter 16. Topic of the Brahman-Bliss. Peace of mind. Nidagha. Hear me again expound to you the supreme truth of sublime bliss. Those who contemplate on this in their heart attain the changeless, peaceful state. I indeed am the supreme Brahman-Bliss ever, which is knowledge, the perfectly full, the thought-free, full of consciousness and endless. Ever meditating, thus attain peace. Thought which is a blemish does not exist. The world that appears does not exist. Until you attain that state of being in a state of sleep without sleeping, continuously meditate thus and be at peace. Ego, there is none for me. No sorrow and no faults exist for me. No happiness exists for me. There is no knowledge for me, no thinking for me, no body for me, and no senses for me. Lineage, there is none for me. Relatives, there are none for me. No enemies exist for me. No mother and father exist for me. There is nothing to be experienced for me. No experiencer and no activity for me. There is no study of Vedas for me. No knowledge for me. No philosophies for me. No place or peer. No religion and no illusion for me. Sitting in silence is the holy ablution, the japa, the worship, the highest. Inquiring constantly with the mind, be of the certitude that I am Brahman. There is no doubt that I am Brahman. Remaining silent thus is the japa. There indeed is nothing as oneself. I am of the nature of the all-transcendent. I transcend words. Doing japa with words is meaningless. This is the highest explanation of the mind. All beings are like corpses. All groups are as corpses. The world is ever unreal. All the universe is unreal. There is no such word as unreal. Being something is unreal. You yourself are ever Brahman alone. This listening is verily unreal. Reflection on that is unreal. Profound meditation too is unreal. This is the truth. There is no doubt about this. All is Brahman. Ever Brahman. Ever Brahman. Brahman is one. The changeless consciousness. Chapter 17. Topic of the glory of the self. State of being the Absolute by knowledge of the Absolute. The awareness of the Supreme will arise only to those who have by the endeavor of their mind constantly persisted in Brahman practice, and thus conquered the mind, never easily for others. Brahman itself is the disciple, the guru, the god, the worship, the meditation, and the knowledge of Brahman. Brahman is all, and that am I. By such differenceless knowledge, you yourself become Brahman. Brahman itself is the father, the mother, the son, the other relatives, the foe and the friend of Brahman. Brahman itself is the self, and the self itself is Brahman. The self is not apart from Brahman. This self, which is of the nature of Brahman, is all the things that manifest themselves as differentiated. By the differenceless knowledge that is aware that the self of the nature of Brahman is oneself, you yourself become Brahman. When inquired into thoroughly, this illusion which has risen up as the world and others on the substratum of all, that is Brahman, is the only non-dual, pure substratum, Brahman itself. By realizing in one's blemishless mind that the superimposition of the world and individuals is on the basic substratum Brahman, and that differenceless Brahman is myself, one shall avoid the debilitating dread of transmigration. Only to those who constantly, steadfastly, and uninterruptedly practice the knowledge of the undivided Absolute will the knowledge I am Brahman become natural. Only to those who have conducted Vedantic inquiry, who have resorted to Sama, tranquility, equanimity, and Dhamma, self-control, will the realization of the Supreme Brahman nature come by. Thus, the sage Ribhu explained the peerless Supreme to Nidagha. Chapter 18. Description of the topic of all pentads to be discarded. Meditation on the undivided nature. Reality is Brahman ever. There is nothing else. I do not exist. There is nothing as egoity. I am devoid of codes of conduct and their fruits. I am Brahman alone. All this is the Supreme Brahman. All is a built-up structure of words and meanings. The apprehension of all the worlds does not exist. All holy waters, temples, gods, too, are unreal. All being only consciousness, the name all never is. Renouncing all forms be of the certitude that all is Brahman. All is supposition. There is no doubt of this. All is unreal. There is no uncertainty of this. All is insignificant, a delusion. There is no doubt about this. All, you and I are Brahman. There is no uncertainty in this. If illusion manifests itself apart from Brahman, all is illusion from one end to another. There is neither body nor five elements, nor the mind, which is a mere misconception. The apparent world looks variegated. It is the symbol of sorrow, insentience, and unreality. The nature of this Supreme Brahman is yourself. Thus ever meditate, without any duality, that I am the Supreme Brahman. There is nothing else that is seen here. All that is seen is Brahman, the seer, and I indeed am that Brahman without a second. If you ever meditate thus, tirelessly, all the impregnable dirt that encrusted your mind as differentiation will be completely cleaned up. If it is not possible to meditate due to lack of concentration because of the wandering mind, even if you utter aloud, I am Brahman, I am Brahman, I am Brahman, am all, the wandering mind will steady itself, casting out even the thought of being changelessly established, going even beyond remaining as your own self, and becoming of the exclusive nature that is beyond the reach of mind and words. Son, attain the natural state. Sahaja. There is nothing more to be taught here. Chapter 19. Topic of the negation of name and form. Greatness of the sage. By the practice, all is Brahman, wherein there is not the slightest perception of the world, the individuals or the Supreme, attain that I am Brahman state of mind that is filled with the undifferentiated consciousness, and thereby rend asunder the bonds of originless transmigration. One who has attained such undivided supreme knowledge is rare to come by anywhere in this world. Out of the countless millions, such a sage would be only one. I am Brahman indeed, which transcends wakefulness, the dream state and deep sleep state, which transcends duality, beyond the bodies, all experiences, which is pervasive and pauseless. Such is the certitude of the peerless sage. I am Brahman, indeed, which transcends restless emotions, ignorance, multifarious things, which is beyond the highest of the high, of the nature of the consciousness, perfectly full in all ways, the changeless Supreme Brahman. Such is the certitude of the peace-filled sage. Who indeed is competent to describe the sublime that soars above speech and mind? It is extremely rare in any world to attain such knowledge that is totally untouched by ignorance. It is very rare to see and talk to a sage who is steadfast in the knowledge of the Supreme, who is the embodiment of awareness. If by any chance doing service to that Supreme Sage falls to one's lot, the supreme state of liberation will also result. I am never born, nor do I ever die. I am never a dullard or deaf person. I am neither a weakling nor a strong man. I am never forgetful or have a sharp memory. I am never ignorant nor wise, neither in bondage nor liberated. I am ever the undivided Supreme Brahman. Be of this certitude. Continue in the I am Brahman bhava, forgetting all this duality when this knowledge culminates in sense-free, mind-free, boundless being, become motionless like a stone of the nature of Brahman, and rid of all weakness, enjoy unhindered bliss. Chapter 20. Topic of the Secret Initiation. Liberation by the certitude of the nature of the Absolute. Nidagha. Listen again to my explanation. The pranava mantra, Aum, and all other mantras are of the nature of Brahman. The inhaled, retained, and exhaled breaths are of the nature of Brahman. One who is of the steadfast certainty that all the apparent duality, which appears as differences, is one differenceless non-dual Brahman, will be liberated from the bondage of worldly existence. Though, due to the accumulated past impressions, thoughts may arise that only duality is the absolute truth. Transcend the fickle mind and such, and do not think of duality as inerasable. Rather, consider all of that, unwaveringly, to be the non-dual supreme nature. If your mind is always your natural self, it will be irreversibly destroyed. This irreversible destruction of the mind, son, is the great state of liberation. This irreversible destruction of the mind can only be attained by the one-pointed practice of the certitude of the Supreme Brahman. Being thus of the firm conviction, bhava, that I am Brahman be established in the nature of bliss. Casting aside that, abide as the one existence. Casting aside that, abide as the attributeless. Casting out that as well, remain as the nature beyond mind and speech. Leaving off even that, abide as the self. Leaving aside that, abide as Brahman alone. Leaving all the said so far, abide as the true void. Leaving aside the void, whatever nature remains, exist as that nature. After losing the nature of remaining so, you will be yourself. The state which cannot be described by words or thought, or by the mind in the least. Hence, after reaching that, the natural state, you will be by yourself, all alone, as yourself. Or else, with total renunciation of everything, focus on I am Brahman, always remembering this, always thinking of this. Be ever of the conviction of being without any qualities, the ever-transcendent truth. I have told you what the Supreme Shiva in His grace has taught me. A man of discrimination should never talk about this rarest of rare explanation in the midst of materialistic, pleasure-prone fools with inflated egos. The courageous ones, after ascertaining the reality of Brahman, even if desirous of objective enjoyment of any sort, should consider it of the nature of Brahman only, and its objective nature illusory. By meditating ceaselessly on Brahman and obtaining the knowledge that there are no differences, and then being rid of all the uncertainty of the wandering mind, one can attain liberation, which is of the nature of the one, undivided and non-dual. Thus the sage Ribhu lovingly explained to Nidagha about the indivisible Absolute. Chapter 21. Topic of the definition of Brahman. Contemplation of Brahman's self. Again and again I say unto you the highest truth. Anything apart from the self is unreal indeed. There is no word for unreality. Reality being ever existent, there is no word for it. I shall declare the definition of the self for one eager for Brahma Abhyasa, practice of Brahman. I shall speak of it immediately, with an auspicious beginning. All is Brahman. I, indeed, am only consciousness. There is nothing else. I, indeed, am the supreme Brahman. I am also the consciousness self. Thought and other things never exist. All is of the nature of the supreme Brahman, which is full of consciousness. Nothing truly exists at all. All is of the nature of the supreme Brahman, which is reality. This duality does not exist at all at any time. All is of the nature of the supreme Brahman, which is the One. I am that non-dual supreme Brahman. Be of this steadfast contemplation always. If practiced continuously, the conviction that I am Brahman will itself be the meditation and absorption of the undivided Absolute. It will indeed be the knowledge of the supreme Brahman. It will itself be the supreme Brahman. All is ever of the nature of the self. The changeless self, indeed, is of the nature of Brahman. Brahman is, indeed, of the nature of the exalted self. One who has this identity firmly established for himself will instantly be liberated from the bondage of worldly existence. The certitude that all is Brahman immediately confers liberation. Brahman is the Savikalpa Samadhi, the Nirvikalpa Samadhi, the original Samadhi. Brahman, indeed, is certainly the void. Hence, it is said to be impossible to meditate on. Forgetting, forgetting again, renouncing, renouncing again. Leave off all activities with the attitude that I am established as the void. Forgetting also that I exist. Forget also that I am manifest. Chapter 22. Topic of the ascertainment of Brahman being all forms. The certitude of the undivided nature, Nidagha. I shall tell you further about the complete and perfectly full Brahman, which is of the nature of the substratum of all the universe, which itself is all and pervades all. There is nothing real, nothing unreal, nothing real unreal. No name and no form that arise, none liberated, none great, no liberation, no anterior, no posterior, and nothing complete. Only the non-dual supreme Brahman is the truth. Be of the deep conviction that I am that. There is no individuality, no duality, no multiplicity, no cause, no effect, no doer, no appearances to see, and no one to see. Only the non-dual supreme Brahman is the truth. Be of the deep certitude that I am that. Saying that all ever indeed is non-existent is the changeless true mantra. Saying all ever indeed is Brahman is the highest and greatest mantra of all. Being void with no thought of anything, indeed transcends all ever. As you delve more and more into the deep conviction that all is Brahman and I am that Brahman, being effectively rid of concepts and doubts, you shall become the complete, perfectly full Absolute. Meditation on the deep conviction that all is Brahman and that am I is the preliminary means to attain supreme liberation. After practice, this conviction too will naturally fall off. Hence, son, most steadfastly practice the conviction that all is Brahman and that am I and attain true liberation. If the conviction that I am Brahman is assiduously practiced daily, all misconceptions in the mind will cease, and all else will, like fire with all firewood consumed, be extinguished by itself in peace, in its own substratum, Brahman. Hence, all seekers of liberation should practice at ease this conviction that I am Brahman, as just explained here. Thus the sage Ribhu, free from bondage, explained the indivisible Absolute to Nidagha. Chapter 23. Description of the topic of the nectar of knowledge and all being full of mind. The exposition of the truth of Advaita non-duality. To strengthen the knowledge of the undivided Supreme Brahman, I shall tell further. Noble soul. The conclusion that it is only Brahman that exists, the mass of existence-consciousness-bliss, the non-dual, that is the quintessence of the Vedas. There is nothing that is all, or a little, or both, real or unreal, or both, happiness or sorrow, or both, purity or impurity, or both. What is universally, perfectly full, the undivided consciousness, the changeless, is only the supreme Brahman. There is nothing of birth with the gross and other bodies, no childhood, youth, or senility, no relative or non-relative, no friend or foe of which to speak. What exists is the undivided supreme Brahman alone. There is never anything illusory, no time, no space, no object, no contemplation or thought of I am Brahman, no differentiation such as Brahman alone being the reality. What exists is the undivided supreme Brahman alone. There is no witness aspect at all of all the developments of the mind. There is no thought of all. The bhava, I am Brahman, does not have the least existence. What exists totally is the supreme Brahman alone. One who has not attained this undivided knowledge of Brahman is, indeed, the most unfortunate. Only one who has known the nature of Shiva as consciousness will attain the undivided supreme liberation. Thus, the great Guru Ribhu explained to Nidagha, Chapter 24. Topic of the definition of the nature of bliss. Attainment of bliss by the bhava. Conviction of the blissful nature. I shall speak about the true explanation of the mind full of Brahman bliss. I am devoid of the joy related to things. I reveal the illusory joy. I am the happy self that is devoid of activity. There is no embodiment of the bliss of the self. I am the pure self, the highest bliss. I am the bliss of consciousness. I am the non-dual. I am the bliss of modes. I am the highest bliss transcending knowledge and blemishless. There is only one great self which fascinates the mind. I am the only one without a second. I am the only one and none other. I am the only one, devoid of worlds, intellect, desire, and delusion. Be of such conviction without doubt, and immediately you are liberated in non-duality. Let one with an unwavering mind at least read such words aloud. Chapter 25. Topic: the self being without characteristics. Supreme liberation is attained through the bhava, conviction, of the pure Brahman. Ribhu said, I am indeed Brahman. I am indeed consciousness. I am of the eternally pure nature, without the duality of beginning and end. There never is anything called mind. There never is any remembrance. There can never be any talk about the world, for it is false. There is no such thing as thought either. The thought that there is thought is itself non-existent. The very notion of there being anything at all is non-existent. Be of the immediate conviction that nothing exists, that there is nothing to be seen. I am indeed Brahman, the divine self, the self of all, higher than the highest. There is only the self. The self, indeed, is enjoyment. The self, indeed, is satisfaction. Happiness is of the self. The self, indeed, is the self of the self. I am indeed the Supreme Brahman. Chapter 26. Topic of the instruction of abiding as that itself. Undifferentiated abidance in the non-dual nature. Ribhu said, I shall now tell you about being wholly that itself. This is rare to come by even for yogis. This is the secret of the Vedas, of all the scriptures. That which is the supreme Brahman, the self of all, of the nature of existence-consciousness-bliss. ever abide as that itself. That in which there is no fear of duality, in which non-duality awakens, in which peacefulness and non-peacefulness both do not exist, ever be that itself. That in which having any bhava is a delusion, speech and body have ended in dissolution, the manifest universe is yet unborn, ever abide as that itself. That in which there is no microcosm or macrocosm, no conception of body, no awareness of thought, no intellect or empirical knowledge, no conception of time, ever abide as that itself. That in which there is no manifestation of things, no victory or defeat, no utterance of statements, ever abide in that itself. That in which knowledge has not arisen, by knowing which all is renounced, nothing else remains, and by knowing which there is nothing else to be known, ever abide in that itself. That in which thought is dead, one's body and mind are dead, wherein memory finally dissolves. The I is surely dead, desires disappear, delusion meets its death, time finds its death. Yoga and satsang cease, ever abide in that itself. Thus the bhava of becoming that itself has been proclaimed, be thus always, ever, ever, I am Brahman, the ever undivided and joyful. All this is the remnant of thoughts, the muddying of purity. Thus, renouncing all and forgetting everything, be like mere dead wood. Leaving aside the body like a corpse, renouncing even remembrance, firmly abide only in Brahman as the goal. Whoever hears this explanation even once, though connected with great sins, shall, casting off all, reach the Supreme. Chapter 27. Topic of the definition of Brahman being the only one. Peace by inquiry into the immaculate nature. All is never existent in the least. What is seen as all is only the Supreme. Be immersed in the inquiry that I am that Brahman, which is the endless undivided essence. There is no world of cause and effect, like the illusory space and such. There are no manifold texts and commentaries riddled with differences and obscurity. Victory and defeat, gain and loss, sorrow, pleasure, praise, censure. None of these exist. Be immersed in the inquiry that all is Brahman, and I am that. As there is no activity of the mind, where arises the thought of this world and others? As demeaning egoity does not exist, where arises the ideas of I and mine? Be immersed in the inquiry of how anything anywhere is Brahman, and that indeed am I. The deep conviction that I am Brahman is the most important means in the world for attaining the undivided supreme liberation. Hence, lovingly practice the differenceless conviction, I am Brahman. Nothing was ever born. Where can the never-born be? How can there be growth of things unborn and non-existent? If something subsists somewhere, its nature can be described, but if nothing exists, what is there to describe? There is no fickle mind ever, so how can there be a misapprehension of it? There is no such thing as listening, thinking, meditation, or absorption, samadhi. Thus, beyond the reach of mind and words, ever be in silence and steeped in serenity. By the conviction that all is Brahman, the misapprehension of this world and others as real would disappear. The intellect, thought, mind, ego, elements, senses, knowledge, action, liberation, and divisions exist not. Hear the purport of all this in brief. All that has been said is of the nature of the Supreme Brahman alone, and that nature is immediate, and is you and I and all. There is no doubt about this, Nidagha. Chapter 28. Topic of the definition of the meaning of the great sayings. Explanation of the four great aphorisms. For the benefit of all, I shall tell here, in the manner the perfectly full Shiva has explained it, the meaning of the 4 great aphorisms that directly reveal the nature of the pure, supreme Brahman. The 4 aphorisms are: Absolute knowledge is Brahman, Prajnanam Brahma, which appears at the end of the eminent Rig Veda, I am Brahman, Aham Brahma, Brahmasmi, which appears at the end of the faultless Yajurveda, that you are, Tat Tvam Asi, at the end of delusionless Sama Veda, and this self is Brahman, I am Atma Brahma, at the end of the rare Atharva Veda. I shall first give the meaning of the first, Prajnanam Brahman. Absolute knowledge is Brahman. All is perceived by knowledge as knowledge and nothing else. Hence, knowledge itself is called absolute knowledge, Prajnanam. The meaning of the word Brahman is the reality, which is truth, knowledge, bliss, of the nature of the substratum of the entire universe, which is superimposed on it and not apart from it. Brahman, the reality indeed, is of the nature of absolute knowledge. The direct meaning of Prajnanam is the conditioned individual, Jiva, and of Brahman, the infinite Lord, Isvara, conditioned by illusion, Maya. The one unconditioned reality is the indicated meaning of both words, which is the undivided meaning of this great aphorism. Knowing and being as the undivided meaning of the aphorism as explained can be said to be the mind in complete immersion in the undivided mode, wherein one realizes, I am indeed the Supreme Brahman. Thus, attaining the knowledge that I am ever of the nature of the Supreme Brahman has been considered by the blemishless sages, Sun, as the undivided state, liberation while yet alive, Jivan Mukta. Later, when the undivided state disappears and all prarabdha, karma remaining for this life, also disappears, the state that ensues as the one undivided essence, without the least trace of conditioning, is liberation out of the body, Videhamukta. Leaving aside the words Prajnanam and Brahman, and also the practiced bhava, conviction that I am Brahman, casting off all thought, and being in the last state of the void that cannot be felt as anything, is the state of the one undivided essence. Videhamukta. Saying that I am the body is the dual state. Saying that I am the witness of all is the witness state. Saying that I am the one supreme is the undivided state. Rejecting 2 out of these 3, assiduously practice the undivided state and be free of sorrowful mental misunderstandings. Next, listen to the explanation of the aphorism, I am Brahman, Aham Brahmasmi. The word meaning of the first word, I, Aham, is the individual, Jiva, for Brahman is Lord, Ishvara, and the endless identity of the two is the meaning of the word Am, Asmi. Inquiring with the intellect into the single essence of this great aphorism, the undivided meaning, and experiencing it by inquiring into it with intellect, be of the nature of this proclaimed one undivided essence. Discriminating persons who have done such inquiry and have practiced assiduously the I am Brahman certitude always have the bhava, conviction, of being the one absolute, and thereby destroy all distortions of their mind forever, without a trace. Have this established perfectly fully in mind, without any sense of contradiction, the meaning of that statement, I am Brahman, which is the awareness of the meaning of the term undivided. Thus, casting off all variety of past impressions, experience this undivided state. Now, I shall tell you clearly the meaning of the statement that you are, Tat Tvam Asi. Primarily, that means the Lord, Ishvara, conditioned by Maya, illusion, and you means the individual, Jiva, conditioned by ignorance, Avidya. The reality with a single nature that remains when all these conditionings are to be rejected or eliminated is the indicated meaning of both these words. Their identity is signified by the word are. The real guru and disciple. The real guru is one who teaches you that you, yourself, the indicated meaning of the word you, are indeed Brahman, the indicated meaning of the word that, tat. That is, you are indeed the perfectly full, pure, supreme Brahman. The one who realizes it as such is the real disciple. He has, after listening ardently to the exposition of the exalted meaning of the undivided and inquiring with a clear mind, obtained the pure conviction that I am indeed Brahman. Listening, reflection, and profound contemplation. Listening, sravana, without confusion, to the undivided meaning of the great aphorism as explained by the Guru is the only true listening, nothing else. Even though the Guru declares that you are indeed the limitless Brahman, reflection, manana, on his words should be initiated through a thorough inquiry into everything, by reasoning with discrimination and knowledge, and all doubts removed. After passing through listening and reflection, in order to overcome all counter-thoughts, one should be in continuous, profound contemplation, nididhyasa, continuously night and day. Obliterating all states of mind of different categories, the continuing state of mind of all being of a single category is the duality-less profound, continuous meditation, nididhyasa. By this, all distorted notions about the goal will disappear. The universal awareness and direct experience. Abiding in the motionless bliss of the Supreme Brahman, with no trace of duality and inimical influences that cause bondage, is indeed the universal awareness. Such a state of mind, buddhi, is the shining undivided state. The knowledge that gets spotlessly reflected in this state is the undivided, supreme, direct experience. It is those who attain this state of undivided, direct experience that become the liberated. I shall now tell you about the meaning of the fourth great aphorism, "This self is Brahman, I am Atma Brahma." Directly, this, I am, means the conditioned by ignorance individual, jiva, and self, Atma, means the Lord, Ishvara, conditioned by Maya, illusion. The indicated meaning of these two words is the pure individual, jiva, and the Lord, Ishvara, without conditionings. The identity of the indirect meaning of these two words is the meaning of the word Brahman. By negating all conditionings of the supreme and the individual, by due inquiry, understand the meaning of the undivided identity, indicated by this aphorism explained. By daily, assiduously practicing the knowledge that I am of the nature of the undivided Absolute, as understood from what has been just said, ever enjoy unforgettably your real nature, the meaning of the undivided, which you have forgotten. That you are, tatasi, is the instruction or teaching. Absolute knowledge is Brahman. Prajnanam Brahma is the spiritual exercise for practice. This self is Brahman. I am Atma Brahma is a statement of perception. And I am Brahman, Aham Brahmasmi, is a statement of experience. The aphorism that you are is a statement that ordains. Absolute knowledge is Brahman is a statement for practice through reflection. This self is Brahman is a statement that confirms all these, and I am Brahman is a great statement of awareness. Hence, by understanding the meaning of the undivided through the statement that you are, by differenceless reflection on the great statement, absolute knowledge is Brahman, and by accepting as true the statement, this self is Brahman, enjoy the meaning of the undivided as explained by the statement, I am Brahman. Chapter 29. Topic of the definition of the illusoriness of all. Constant meditation on the nature of pure reality. It is that Brahman which eternally endures. That is your own pure, true nature. When the reality of the imaginary snake is thoroughly inquired into, that reality is only the substratum of the snake form, namely the reality of the rope and not the reality of the snake. Likewise, upon deep inquiry, the reality of the world is realized to be only the reality of Brahman, the substratum. It is only that Brahman, which is ever the reality, that is your own non-dual true nature. The body, senses, life, confounded mind, intellect, ego, thoughts, and the primal ignorance of these, which all seem differentiated, on inquiry are realized to be only one reality, the Supreme Brahman. The multiplicity of castes and laws, the divisions of orders of life, ashramas, the changing actions and their performers, the results achieved, the true and false, all these considered different, are wholly false. Only the changeless supreme. Tranquility and practice, the listening, the reflection on the listened, and the profound meditation of it are all of the nature of the mind. And the mind itself is non-existent. So where can all these be? The peaceful Supreme Brahman is the only reality. The internal, adhyatmic forces, manas, mind, buddhi, intellect, chit, thought, and ahankara, ego, their perception as the external forces, adhibhautic, and the divine, adhidaivika, forces so classified are all unreal. Excessive recitation aloud of authorities will cause fatigue of speech. Hearkening to a multiplicity of authorities will cause mental confusion. Inquiry into a variety of meanings will cause mental malaise. Hence, worthy son, leaving aside everything, profoundly meditate that I am Brahman. Men of the highest intellect, buddhi, should first study and understand the correct meaning to be grasped from this, and have profound meditation in order to have a direct perception, sakshatkara, of that truth. They should not repeatedly go through the text. Understanding based upon the text of various scriptures, without a trace of real experience of one's own, is of no use but as a text. Thus, after having understood the meaning of the texts, throw them away and practice daily, constant meditation intently for gaining complete knowledge. The wavering mind will not easily let itself be controlled. To be in that very same state day in and day out, one should be in profound, constant meditation upon I am the eternal Supreme Brahman. They who, with pure love, listen to this doubtless explanation with avidity will have all the sins of any kind of birth burnt up, and, in the twinkling of an eye, attain liberation, with the knots of their heart cut asunder. For the liberation of all, I have expounded the meaning of the Vedanta, as made brilliantly known to me by the Supreme Shiva. Thus did the sage Ribhu, free of all affliction, discourse to Nidagha on the Absolute, which is free from all duality. Chapter 30. Topic of the nature of Existence-Consciousness-Bliss. Supreme bliss by the certitude of the Supreme Brahman. In the fivefold division as existence, awareness, bliss, name, and form, the major first three are of the nature of the Absolute. The minor latter two are of the nature of the world. Casting aside these two, which are mere words, be of the certitude that I am the Absolute, which remains as Existence-Consciousness-Bliss. All disputations of philosophies are, when inquired into, the pure, supreme Brahman. Being of the faultless conviction that I am the Supreme, be rid of all defects. Son, this world and individuals are only that perfectly full Brahman. You are that non-dual Brahman. Hence, be full of the changeless awareness that whatever is eternal is Brahman. And I am that Brahman. For those who are of the nature of the exalted Supreme, there are none of the problems of this misery of repetitive birth and death. Therefore, as explained here, always practice the certitude that I am the undivided Absolute. Thus did the exalted Ribhu explain the limitless reality to the sage Nidagha. Chapter 31. Topic of attaining Brahman with examples. The truth of non-duality explained through 64 examples. In this discourse, I shall present to you the certain knowledge of the unparalleled, undivided Absolute with exceedingly wonderful analogies that make for interesting listening. If anyone would be afraid of the words of the son of a barren woman, or if anyone could drink from the waters of a mirage, or if a massive tree could grow without a seed, or if the mean-minded could appreciate the fair-mindedness of a wise one, the world would be real. If a person who died a month ago is seen to return in joy, or if a dream object continued to exist in the waking state, or if the crow could walk the charming swan step, or should confirmed fools comprehend the greatness of an exalted thing, the world would be real. Lay aside the ghost of doubt and the fickle phantom of duality by the mantra of contemplation on the Absolute. Those who listen and follow the endless strategies here described will attain complete Brahman knowledge. Thus did Ribhu propound to Nidagha the undivided supreme reality. Chapter 32. Topic of the instruction in Brahman-Conviction. Attaining the nature of the Supreme by the bhava. Attitude, conviction, of oneself being the supreme reality. Nidagha, listen to what I have to say. All is the self and nothing else. I am the undivided Supreme Self. I indeed am the Supreme Brahman. All is non-existent. I am Brahman alone. I am the substance of time, action, the world, the seen, and the seer. I am just consciousness. Ever liberated I am. There does not exist anything as the individual jiva and bondage. I am devoid of the mind and the world. The world is always just consciousness. The mind is prone to the body concept. Non-inquiry is the biggest foe. What is this inquiry into the undivided Absolute? Who am I? What is this world? What is in this? What is the supreme truth? Asking of the Sadguru, true Guru, thus, and by Vedanta, having the certitude that all is Brahman, and I am that Brahman, is the inquiry. Reasoning with a concentrated mind that the Supreme is all this, that we are that, and that the illusory world is that is the truth, and coming to the firm conclusion, by wise discernment, is the inquiry. When inquired into, all the diverse differences of the world superimposed in their multiplicity on the Supreme Brahman, the truth, will be found to be nothing apart from the immaculate Brahman itself. As it is only the Supreme Brahman, the self of all, that ever changelessly exists, be of the steadfast bhava, conviction, that I indeed am the Supreme Brahman, which is permanent, and be rid of uncertainty. But for thought there is no phenomenal world, but for the mind there is not an atom of the world. As the mind arises in me, abides in me, and subsides in me, filled with consciousness, there is nothing of the mind apart from me, filled with consciousness. Being again and again, always and continuously of the bhava, conviction, as declared here, become yourself of the nature of the blemishless Supreme Brahman. Thus did Ribhu, the sage of clear vision, explain the undivided truth to Nidagha. Chapter 33. Topic of the instruction in Brahman-Conviction. The greatness of the undivided knowledge of the self. Nidagha, I shall further tell you about the undivided knowledge of the self. Those who listen happily to this auspicious explanation shall never be submerged in the ocean of worldly misery. Son, the self, which is our nature, is the indicated meaning of the word I, and that of Brahman is the nature of Supreme Brahman. The identity of the self and the supreme is the undivided truth, proclaimed in the great aphorisms like I am Brahman and others. The knowledge of the self, of the conviction that I am Brahman, will dispel the delusion that I am the body and such. This conviction arises out of deep discrimination and is by far the best yoga. The knowledge of the self, which is the realization that I am Brahman, will stand fast only for the practitioner who practices always the conviction, I am Brahman. It will destroy all superimposition, and repeated practice leads to samadhi intense absorption. If the ever-moving, fickle mind meanders or wavers, making a mockery of meditation, one can recite aloud the words of this text on the topic of the motionless, undivided self. Say aloud, I am the supreme Brahman, and it will dispel all distractions. Therefore, casting aside all intellectual differences, that there is even an atom apart from Brahman, and strengthening yourself with the firm resolve that Brahman is all and I am that, attain the experience of the originless, endless, undivided nature, and be filled with that. Chapter 34. Topic of the settled conclusions. All is Brahman, the self is all, and the greatness of the I am Brahman, certitude. Nothing is created at any time. Nothing exists at any time. Nothing is destroyed at any time. Nothing at any time exists. Nothing at all. It is only the one complete, perfectly full Brahman, which is ever without duality, that exists at all times everywhere. The Supreme Brahman is not different from the self. There is not the least bit apart from the self. Whatever is seen as superimposed on the self is, indeed, the self. The self is the undivided expanse of consciousness, completely peaceful and perfectly full Brahman. The I am Brahman certitude is the great holy shrine, Dharma, worship and mantra, the great yoga and meditation, the great renunciation and destruction of mind, the great gift, personal experience and pure knowledge. Indeed, liberation while alive, Jivan Mukta. Indeed, disembodied liberation, Videha-mukta. Chapter 35. Topic of the voidness of the phenomenal world. The samadhi of abidance in the self by the knowledge of the certitude of non-duality. There is no mind or its distortions, no delusion that the mind is the cause, no waking, dream, or deep sleep states, no name or form, no me or you. Nothing else ever, never anything at all. Negating all differences by inquiry, and abiding as the nature of the undivided absolute, with nothing separate, abide changelessly in the self. Of the three modes, the dualistic mode of I am the body and such, the witness mode that I am the witness of all, and the undivided mode that I am the one absolute, reject the first two and settle in the third, thus attaining the differenceless knowledge of the Supreme Brahman by the undivided supreme mode, and being rid of all the original bondage of the misery of the worldly existence, ever abide in the self. Setting aside all yoga, such as the ingoing and outgoing breaths, setting aside all action and contemplation, all essenceless religions, and being of the bhava, conviction, that Brahman is the reality, attain complete realization of the Supreme. Thus did Sutta, who was well versed in all things, graciously address the assembled sages, telling them how the omniscient Skanda conveyed the great truth by narrating the dialogue between the sage Ribhu and Nidagha. Chapter 36. Topic of the dissolution of all. Effacing the mind by the conviction, bhava, of being the undivided absolute, and destruction of ignorance and such by the conviction, bhava, of being the undivided Brahman. Even if one has all the education in the world, If the mind does not remain firm and undisturbed, the intractable travails of transmigration will never cease. There is no doubt about this. All that is seen as the objective world is indeed the Absolute, and that non-dual Supreme Brahman is myself. By such intensely steadfast conviction, bhava, conquer the mind. If, due to the originless tendencies, vasanas, of worldly existence, the undivided, undifferentiated knowledge does not prevail in the mind, even after constant daily inquiry, one should resort again and again to the conviction, bhava, I am Brahman. If you remain in the constant conviction that I am Brahman and I am all the creeping notions of difference, that the world, individuals, the Supreme, you and I, and this and that are separate, will disappear. By the I am Brahman, bhava, conviction, desire and anger, greed and infatuation, arrogance and jealousy, conceit and pride, all will be entirely effaced, there is no doubt about this. By the I am Brahman, bhava, conviction, all merits, all manifest worlds, all pairs of opposites, all other existences, all other connections will be effaced. There is no doubt about this. Hence, ever pauselessly practice the I am Brahman conviction, thereby relinquishing all ideas of difference, and be of the nature of undivided Brahman. The worthy sage Sutta discoursed to the assembled sages of pure heart what the omniscient Skanda, in his unbounded grace, told the eager inquirer Jaghishavya, which is the explanation just declared as told to Nidagha by the sage Ribhu. Chapter 37. Topic of the negation of mental modes. Abiding as the non-dual Brahman by the undivided supreme certitude. If you always practice flawlessly the certitude that the body, the senses, the beings, the ideas, the mind, the thoughts, the ego, none of these exist, nor does their root, ignorance, exist, and have the firm certitude of being the supreme Brahman, all differences of the mind will vanish. All projections that arise as in a picture, such as the decisive functioning of the intellect, the doubtful functioning of the mind, the eerie emanations of thought, the multiplicity of experiences, all are of the nature of Supreme Brahman. The idea that I am Brahman, the concept of guru and disciple, the experience that I am liberated, the understanding that all is Brahman, be of this certitude. It is only to those of profound meditation that this experience will result, and never to those who are dominated by the hopping mind. Hence, always practice the one-pointed profound meditation that all the illusory appearances are indeed the Supreme Brahman, the substratum, and I am this Brahman myself. Chapter 38. Definition of the eulogy of the treatise. The greatness of the treatise. With conclusive certitude, I shall tell you about the greatness of this treatise, which is the essence of all varieties of treatises, the quintessence of all essences, the most secret and extremely rare. I am ever the existence alone, the consciousness alone, the bliss alone, the pure absolute, the wholly complete, the highest of the high, the supreme Shiva, the supreme Brahman. There is no doubt about this. Even if not competent by nature, to listen to and understand the substance of this treatise, or just read sincerely daily, one would progressively attain undivided knowledge and thereby become liberated. This is the truth. Hence, casting aside everything, always take to the practice of what is expressed in this treatise. Renouncing all mantras, holy baths, homas, worship, service, lessons, the guide, the guru, all the world, also, this text should be practiced. Here indeed is the highest liberation, the supreme happiness, the repose of thought, the rending asunder of the knot. Renouncing all sastras, scriptures, read this text silently, and liberation is certain. If one hears this even once in the midst of life, he, too, is liberated. Once in the days of yore, my father, Brahma, with a doubt arising in his heart that none will get liberated by this text, secreted this by throwing it into the ocean of milk. Then, coming to know of this, I immediately retrieved it when it washed ashore on the ocean of milk, and my father was furiously enraged with me. Departing from that world that day, I reached this wonderful holy spot of Kedara. And today, moved by your devotion, I have expounded this treatise for the benefit of all. Besides, there is no one in this world competent to understand the meaning of this treatise and to communicate it to a worthy disciple. Is not this pure supreme knowledge indeed rare? The undivided knowledge is rare to come by. So also is this treatise a rarity? The one who teaches graciously, the one who listens attentively, and the one who truly understands are all rare indeed. I have said all that I have to say. Now I shall betake myself elsewhere. Hearing these profound words of Ribhu, overcome with joy, and with tears of happiness welling up in his eyes, his body trembling with overwhelming devotion, Nidagha prostrated himself with humility, and, his voice choking in ecstasy, uttered this: "O Brahman, having achieved what I sought, I am satisfied. Indeed, I am. There is no doubt about this. By the darshan, sight, of your great self, my life has become fruitful. There is no occasion for this. I, indeed, am not real. You, indeed, are not. Nor is there anything of mine. The word Brahman exists not, and there is not even the slightest Brahman bhava, conviction about Brahman. This text does not exist for me. All exists as Brahman. The sentence, all is Brahman, exists not enough of the dualistic differentiation of that and you. Thus, there is nothing in the least, at any time, anywhere. All is a frictionless peace. There is only one and no second. The world composed of parts with pairs of opposites, the defects of the world, the samsara, the mode of duality, the witness mode, the undivided mode, the undivided essence do not exist. There is no guru or sishya, disciple, in the least. All this I have realized merely by having a darshan sight of you. There is no doubt about this. Oh, I am the light of lights, having attained the Brahman light. Obeisance to you, good Guru, Brahman. Obeisance to you, dear Guru. Thus prostrating, Nidagha stood silent, in complete joy. Chapter 39. Topic of the description of Nidagha's experience. Nidagha's eulogy in loving wonder of the grace of the Guru and description of his wonderful direct experience of the undivided reality. The blemishless sage Ribhu again affectionately addressed sage Nidagha. Did you understand the greatness of the rare-to-find undivided knowledge explained? Did you attain Brahman? Did you attain the state of being that, devoid of all the vacillating distortions of the mind? Best among gurus? Oh, by your compassion, I have instantly reached the certitude that all is Brahman. Oh, by this expansive, definite certitude, I am at peace within myself, the Absolute. Till this day, I had been spoiled by the enemies like nescience, the mind, ideas of action, ideas of the individual, jiva. Today, I have all these removed by your compassion. What seemed to be I as a part, as eons of time, became Brahman. What looked like being, like here and hereafter, also became Brahman. What looked like this and that also became Brahman. All manner of appearances became Brahman. Wonderful is your grace. Oh, how wonderful! What appeared to me earlier as impurity has today become the delusionless Supreme Brahman. What appeared to me as my mind has become the ultimate truth, the Supreme Brahman. What appeared to me as action, as despicable, has today become the perfectly full Supreme Brahman. What appears as thought has itself become Brahman. All is Brahman indeed, and I am that. By such understanding of the undivided Absolute, and thereby being rid of all differences as all and I, discarding worldly attachment, I have become the Supreme Brahman. I indeed have become the eternal, the peerless, the pure, the subtle, the blemishless, undivided Supreme Brahman. O Master, how great is your grace! How great! Stating thus, with utmost deference, in front of the sage Ribhu, the non-dual experience he had attained in the undivided Supreme Brahman, Nidagha, himself transformed into the undivided, without the minutest misapprehension, and identifying himself with the Supreme Brahman, enjoyed untrammeled bliss. Chapter 40. Topic of the description of Nidagha's experience. Nidagha's declaration of his being Brahman, the seer, with nothing to see and no obeisance to be offered to a guru. Sage Nidagha continued, Master, by your steadfast compassion, I do not perceive the body that appears as gross, subtle, or causal. I do not perceive the deluded mind, time, or space, and such. I have become the Supreme Brahman without a trace of anything illusory. I do not perceive any duality or non-duality, any joy or sorrow, any praise or blame, any differences of multiple religions, any words of instruction. I have become the changeless Supreme Brahman, revered one. There is no way I can recompense you here. I offered you my body and mind, but you burnt them to ashes. I offered you myself, but that too you made your own self. I am submerged in the ocean of I am Brahman, and dissolved therein. Hence there is nothing for me to give, and for you to take and go elsewhere. According to your teachings, there is nothing apart anywhere. There is no scope for you to instruct and for me to learn. What a wonder this is, revered one! You, the Sadguru, true Guru, who gives with grace, do not exist. I, the disciple to receive, do not exist. Should I now, in dichotomy, as you and I, bow to you with reverence, I would be doing a distinct disservice to myself. All being ever one consciousness, the best thing is to be totally silent. In my days of ignorance, I did feel differences which have now, by your grace, totally gone. Apart from seeing all the illusory appearances as Brahman, there is nothing that I see as apart. By this intense, definite certitude, I have become the Supreme Brahman, all consciousness. Chapter 41. Topic of the description of Nidagha's experience. Nidagha's narration about becoming the Brahman of truth, knowledge, bliss, infinite. Master, in delusionless joy, I shall say more about the experience of the undivided Absolute. I have become the Supreme Brahman, the One, without any conditioning of attachment such as thought, division such as Maya, delusion, and duality of the world, the individual, and the Supreme. I, indeed, have become Brahman, the truth, the motionless, the eternal, the partless, the pure, the mass of bliss, the unsurpassed Supreme Brahman. I, indeed, have become Brahman, the unmodified, the blemishless, the attributeless, the pervasive, the indestructible, the universal, without superimposition, the immaculate Supreme Brahman. What avails explanation in various ways? It is I, indeed, who have become all that appears as separate in the phenomenal world. It is I, indeed, who have become the absolute, just that, standing alone. Divorced from any of the dignified philosophical dissertations, what shall I say of the undiminished greatness of myself, rid of all the defects of I, and established as the undivided supreme Brahman? Lord, is not all this the power of your compassion? I have been describing the undivided, supreme certitude in the manner I have obtained it. All that is said here is the truth. Saying thus, Nidagha abided in the bliss of the nature of the pure Absolute. Chapter 42. Description of the Praise of the Guru by Nidagha. Nidagha's description of the greatness of the treatise, of its teacher, and of the grace of Shiva that bestows the knowledge. Nidagha said, "The narrator of this treatise is Shiva himself. The Father gives birth, the Guru destroys birth. In the practice of what is contained in this treatise, sincerity, indeed, is the highest motivation. Sincerity is the greatest harbinger of good, the cause of the identity of the individual self and Brahman, the cause of listening to the teaching that Brahman exists, and the cause of resorting to meditation in such a bhava, conviction. The father and other relatives cannot remove the originless bondage of worldly existence, simply because they give one only an endless succession of bodies. If inquired into with deep thought, all such relatives are only enervating enemies. To attain the knowledge of the identity of the individual and the Supreme, nothing else can be the cause except faith. There is no knowledge that compares with that contained in this treatise. This knowledge is easy to attain as there is no strain in the non-dual conviction, bhava. Therefore, only those who abstain from other treatises and practice only the tenets of this treatise does the differenceless, undivided, supreme knowledge result. Thus did sage Nidagha, on the strength of his personal experience and by the divine grace of his Guru, describe the glory of this treatise in delectable fashion in the presence of the Guru, and abide in the bliss of identityless nature. Thus Skanda graciously expounded this to Jaihishavya. So said Sutta to all those assembled. Chapter 43. Definition of the Shiva-vows, which are the means to enlightenment. Nidagha's narration of attaining the state of Jivan Mukti, liberation while yet alive, abiding as the nature of the eternal, pure, realized, liberated, infinite consciousness by the grace of the Acharya, teacher. The great sage Nidagha, in blissful rapture, further praised the Guru thus, "Worthy guide, by your discourse I am rid of the delusion of the world and all, and have become Brahman, truth knowledge infinity, supreme Guru. By the instruction with which you have graced me, I have become Brahman, the one infinite expanse of consciousness, rid of the division as the individual, the supreme, and the world. The wearing of ashes with devotion is called the vow of the Pasupatas. It is by wearing of the ashes, symbolic of the truth, that instantaneous knowledge of the Absolute will result. By resorting to the Pasupata vow for 1 whole year, I have reached your feet, revered one. By your grace, I have today attained the undivided knowledge and abide in the self. Sadguru, true Guru. As instructed by you, meditating ceaselessly, lovingly, uninterruptedly, constantly, unfatiguedly, and sincerely, that I am the attributeless Supreme Brahman, I have myself become the great awareness. The Videhamukta, one liberated out of the body, is the one who is free from the individual conditionings like mind and others, and free from the cosmic conditionings like Maya, delusion, and such. The Videhamukta is devoid of all diverse states like wakefulness and others, of name and form, and of any superior or inferior. he is completely free from even the certitude, I am Brahman, and exists blemishlessly as the Supreme Brahman alone. Abiding as the nature of substratum of all, I have become Brahman, which manifests as all. I have become the non-dual Brahman, which is established as the undivided, with nothing apart. Sutta described all of this to all who were assembled, as faultlessly expounded by Skanda to Jaighi-Shavya, removing all his sorrow. Chapter 44. Description of the epitomized instruction by Ribhu. Extolling the greatness of this text, with profound meditation as the primary means for obtaining the grace of the Supreme Shiva. For the benefit of all, for all time, the immaculate sage Ribhu continued further, affectionately addressing Nidagha, who had received the undivided, supreme knowledge without a second. Son, you have achieved your goal by attaining the highest undivided knowledge. Listen now to the method by which all intelligent seekers in this world, after liberation, daily assiduously practice meditation, in complete concentration, until the cascading compassion of the Supreme Shiva touches you. I, indeed, am of the nature of imperishable existence, Brahman, the attributeless, the afflictionless, the all-pervasive. I, indeed, am of the nature of Brahman, the eternal, the pure, absolute, which is all truth. Thus, steadfastly, should one constantly, profoundly meditate. It is only to those who, in adherence to the axioms of the great aphorisms of Vedanta, continuously meditate with love, without confusion, for a considerable period, that the rare compassion of the Supreme Shiva will flow, and the blissful supreme knowledge, the awareness, will result. Hearing the exhortation of the Guru in this manner, the exalted Nidagha eulogized him, and abounding with love, offered home and family and all to the Guru, and also himself as son. Glory to you, my Sadguru, true Guru, who has, by conferring the worthy, undivided supreme knowledge on me, long submerged in illusion, and in the whirl of thought, that the erroneous path of action would enable me to reach the goal, made me verily that itself. The Guru then addressed the sage Nidagha, who has surrendered all as Guru Dakshina, offering to the Guru, and engaged himself in matchless service. Son, you have attained intense, steadfast, complete knowledge of the Supreme Brahman. Though this is true, pursue the I am Brahman certitude ardently and pauselessly every day, and abide in your natural state until you attain Vidaha Mukti, disembodied liberation. Anything apart from total intense I am Brahman? Certitude does not contribute to liberation at all. Only those who practice the I am Brahman certitude day after day does the rare liberation result easily. There is nothing except this treatise specified for obtaining the changeless, steadfast, I am Brahman certitude, the means for undivided supreme liberation. This treatise is the essence of all the widespread works in all the multiplicity of worlds. As Ribhu made this majestic declaration addressing all, Nidagha, with unconcealed joy, was bathed in the ocean of bliss. Hearing the beautiful Ribhu-Nidagha conversation, Sukha and other sages, attaining the realization of the Supreme Brahman that is free of bondage to the body, became of the nature of that Supreme Brahman without bondage. Then all the great sages, bowing in joy and affection to sage Ribhu, said, "Changeless Master, you have taken us, who have taken refuge in your feet, into your grace, ferrying us across the ocean of originless ignorance and worldly sorrow. The boat you used was of the instruction in Brahman knowledge, to attain supreme bliss on the shores of the Supreme Brahman, and protected us from further onslaughts of the miseries of mundane existence. Sage Ribhu, having elevated Nidagha and other sages to the nature of the Absolute by his discourse to them on the systematic teaching that he obtained by the compassion of the Lord, Iswara, on Mount Kailasa, remained in endless bliss. Likewise, I, Skanda, have graced you, Jaihishavya, with this. Now, I shall proceed to grace you with subtleties of the various aspects of this knowledge. Listen. All the individuals, jivas, in this world should, to begin with, perform actions prescribed in Vedas. While doing so, they should always wear the divine ash, triple stripe, rudraksha, holy berries, and properly worship the manifest great linga, monolithic symbol of Shiva, daily. What avails a surfeit of statements? Only those who conform to the adjuncts of knowledge as aforesaid and inquire into this treatise will attain the steady knowledge of this treatise emanating from Sambhu, the bestower of happiness. Thus Shanmukha expounded to Jaihishavya this incomparable treatise. Sutta, following the same vein, graced all the great sages with the narration of this treatise. Listening to this eminent treatise, and steadfast in the knowledge of the Supreme Brahman, filled with consciousness and enjoying divine bliss, all those sages, in steadfast commitment, turned to the Guru with undiminished love, and praising him in all humility, became that itself and reveled in their natural state. Obeisance to the twin feet of the great sage Sutta, who has narrated this treatise. Obeisance to the twin feet of Vyasa, who faultlessly explained this to him. Obeisance to the twin feet of the great exalted sage Jaihishavya, who raised this topic. Obeisance to the twin feet of Shanmukha, who expounded and explained all this to that sage. Obeisance to the felicitous feet of the Mother, who, in all grace, taught this to him. Obeisance to the feet of the blemishless Nidagha and exalted sages who responded with queries. Obeisance to the feet of the matchless sage Ribhu, who dispelled their dark ignorance with his exposition. Obeisance to the feet of the Supreme Shiva, higher than the highest, who in his love taught him, Ribhu, all this.